Only China could turn melon seeds into a national snack. Interestingly, melon seeds were once regarded purely as pet food overseas, while they are now eaten as snacks in Russia, Turkey, and Spain. Only the Chinese have reached a true level of obsession. Whenever our mouths are idle, we can't help but reach for some to crack. We crack them during New Year while binge watching sports, or just chatting. Logically, cracking seeds is both tiring and time-consuming. Plus, they leave shells everywhere. They're a very low-efficiency snack. Yet, over the past decade, Chinese people have consistently consumed around 950 tons of sunflower seeds annually. Many have even developed what's known as sunflower seed teeth, but that hasn't dampened their passion for cracking them. Are these seeds really that addictive? And why is such a famous Chinese snack so rarely eaten abroad? Hello everyone, this is Kanchai today. We're going to dive deep into the world of melon seeds. Here's a handful of freshly roasted seeds, salty, savory, cheap, and habit-forming. But cracking seeds isn't just a modern habit born of recent cravings. It's actually a tradition that's practically hardwired into our genes. However, what our ancestors were cracking wasn't sunflower seeds, but watermelon seeds. Records of melon seeds date back to the Song dynasty, where they ranked alongside luxury items like ginseng and glaze as a specialty of old Beijing. But they weren't widely popular back then, until the Ming dynasty, when Emperor Zizong, a renowned royal foodie, came along. In the Zhuozhong Jai, a eunuch documented the emperor's preference for seeds. The late emperor loved fresh lotus seed soup and fresh watermelon seeds prepared with a hint of salt. This refers to seed watermelons, which have much plumper seeds, lightly roasted with a bit of salt to preserve their natural aroma. They were just like the salted roasted seeds we eat today. And the emperor didn't just eat them himself. He constantly promoted them, bestowing a handful of seeds on others, much like sending a digital red envelope today. This imperial favorite with a hint of salt became a sensation in the court, and eventually spread across the nation during the Qing dynasty. But speaking of which, you might be wondering, we eat watermelon all the time in summer, but don't the seeds look like this? How could these tiny things be worthy of being a tribute for the emperor? In fact, the seeds Ming Zizong snacked on, and the ones we spit out today, come from two completely different species of watermelon. Around the 10th century, during the Five Dynasties period, watermelons were introduced to northern China from the western regions, hence the name Western melon. But back then they didn't look like they do today. They looked like this. The flesh of this seed watermelon was coarse and fibrous, with white pulp and a bland taste. The sole purpose of cultivating it was to harvest the seeds. Snackable watermelon seeds we eat today come from this very variety. Meanwhile, the fresh watermelons we eat today have invested all their skill points into the pulp, rendering their seeds unfit for snacking. Later, as pumpkins were introduced to China, our ancestors began alternating between the two types of seeds. But whether it was watermelon or pumpkin seeds, they all faced one fundamental problem. They were literally melon seeds. To eat them, you had to wait for the fruit to fully ripen, so yield and popularity were always limited. This problem wasn't solved until the arrival of the sunflower. In fact, sunflowers were introduced to China during the Ming dynasty. Their large flower heads were originally used only for decoration, known as tall chrysanthemums. However, the food-loving Chinese eventually discovered that its kernels had a rich, nutty aroma, much like traditional melon seeds. Most importantly, it was the first crop to be cultivated on a large scale, specifically for snacking. Since then, melon seeds have achieved a stunning transformation from a byproduct to the main event. During the Republic of China period, they quickly swept across the entire nation, ultimately taking the top spot in the snack industry, completing the last piece in the history of Chinese melon seed development, and the most critical one at that. Why did sunflower seeds manage to outshine watermelon and pumpkin seeds and become the reigning king of melon seeds today? It mainly comes down to two things: overwhelming yield and an addictive mouthfeel. Anyone who knows what a sunflower looks like knows that their yield is massive and the seeds are large. With a high kernel to shell ratio, they aren't as difficult to peel as watermelon or pumpkin seeds, and the kernels don't easily crumble into tiny pieces. Not to mention the taste advantage, sunflower seeds have a natural nutty aroma. Once roasted, their fragrance is absolutely irresistible, and nowadays snack brands like Cha-Cha and Three Squirrels have taken the flavors of melon seeds to a whole new level. On basic options like original caramel and chicken broth, there are now even curry and river snail rice noodle flavors completely conquering millions of Chinese palates. But At this point, many of you might be wondering, since sunflowers are purely an imported product, why is it mostly Chinese people who are addicted to them today, while foreigners in their places of origin rarely have this habit? Indeed, if you took a handful of, in shell, sunflower seeds to Europe, they would likely be mistaken for bird feed, because in the mainstream food cultures of Britain, France, and Germany, the concept of shell-spitting snacks barely exists. Their snacks are usually limited to candy or puffed foods like potato chips. It's just various pre-opened nuts. Just crack them open and eat. There's no need to put them in your mouth for further processing. The Spanish might be an exception, as they also have a very long history of eating seeds, because locally, there are many football matches and sports events while watching the game. People love to crack open a bag of seeds to pass the time. It serves the same purpose as popcorn in a movie theater. But, as we mentioned earlier, in most European countries, cracking seeds is often seen as unrefined eating behavior. As for the US, although it's one of the native lands of sunflowers, the local history of eating the seeds only dates back about a century, and the way Americans eat them is quite wasteful. They don't crack them, but prefer to chew them whole. Similar to the Spanish watching football with seeds in the USF, seeds and baseball are the ultimate pair back in the 50s and 60s. Baseball legend Reggie Jackson, looking to quit the habit of chewing tobacco, started eating sunflower seeds on the field. This habit was quickly adopted by the entire league. But take note, the way American players eat is to toss a handful into their mouths, chew them shells and all, and then spit them out. This method is for a quick protein and fat boost to stay focused on the field, lacking the elegant one-at-a-time suction technique of the Chinese. So for them, seeds are more like a functional chewing gum rather than a casual snack. Of course, as the variety of snacks in China continues to grow, many young people are no longer fond of eating seeds. They might even think the older generation loves them just because they're bored. But in fact, scientific evidence shows that the reason Chinese people are so obsessed, in fact, you're being held hostage both psychologically and physically, is a famous psychological experiment called the Skinner box. A pigeon is placed in a box, and as long as it presses a lever, food is released. The pigeon quickly develops a conditioned reflex and starts pressing the lever frantically. Cracking melon seeds is essentially the human version of a Skinner box. When you see them, you instinctively want to pop one in your mouth. Crack. As the crispy kernel hits your tongue, your brain instantly releases dopamine. The reward system is activated, and your brain immediately demands another one. The process is so short and the gratification is so instant. Unlike eating a watermelon, which requires cutting, spitting seeds, and swallowing juice, or eating an apple, which involves peeling and lengthy chewing. Cracking seeds is the ultimate low-investment, high-reward activity, making it highly addictive. But as the old saying goes, be wary of anything that can become an addiction. Melon seeds are no exception. The kernels might look small, but they are literal fat traps. Every 100 grams of sunflower seeds contains about 50 grams of fat. That's a calorie count comparable to pork belly. And those popular flavors like Five Spice and cream are often packed with high amounts of salt. A handful of seeds can easily send your salt intake over the limit, draining both your blood pressure and your kidneys. The most visible impact of long-term cracking on one side of your mouth is sunflower seed teeth, where the front teeth wear down and darken, or even causing TMJ disorders. Of course, eating melon seeds isn't without its benefits. They're rich in vitamin E and unsaturated fatty acids, which are good for the heart, provided they're eaten in moderation. Once you overdo it, all that oil will turn into a spare tire around your waist. So experts suggest that no matter how much you love them, stick to about 50 grams a day and make sure to stay hydrated. Otherwise, you might end up with a sore throat or mouth ulcers. So, after all that, why do Chinese people love cracking seeds so much? I think you now have the answer. They're more than just a snack. They're a way of life, from a local specialty of Song Dynasty Yuzhou to a royal snack for Ming emperors. And now to the array of bizarre flavors found online today. This tiny sunflower seed has witnessed the evolving lifestyle of the Chinese people. When we crack seeds, we aren't just passing the time. We're bonding with others and using the most affordable and convenient way to find instant happiness. So have you had your fill of seeds this Chinese New Year?